Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Rain Day Gaming. Do you want to know where the Season 7 meta is going with the weapons? Do you want to know what buffs have been occurring in the patch notes that have just been released, and what weapons can put you over the edge in your combat in Olympus? This is the video for you. We're going to be talking about every single weapon in Apex Legends Season 7, and of course the buffs, nerfs, changes, and ranking them considering these changes. We've got Flatline changes, Sentinel changes, a new hop-up. It is a great video, and I cannot wait to get this out, and I appreciate you guys stopping by. Let's get into it. Let's start right with the light ammo weapons, and you can see the G7 Scout here is going to have virtually no changes. A long-range weapon that serves as a really nice kind of up-close burst when you hip fire, and also a really nice poke weapon. It's one of the most versatile weapons in Apex Legends, and if you're new in Season 7 and you haven't checked it out, it's really one of the best things to do. One of the more, I think, harder weapons to gear up fully is all those attachments can be applied to an R301 or an R99, which is back on the floor, and the Prowler has actually gone into the care package, which we'll talk about and show off. It is a beast, but as you can see, the double tap hop-up, which can be applied to this as well, can give you some nice two-shot burst. The G7 Scout, one of the best weapons, super versatile as well in the way that it's approached. Moving on to number 2, which is the Alternator. The Alternator in the light ammo category goes right in about 4th to 3rd place, but I think honestly it's not the star of the light ammo category this season. There are two weapons in particular that truly really will steal the thunder. Now, the one big aspect of the Alternator is that it's consistent. So if you want poke from range, and I kind of like to talk about it like this, if you want to outlast an opponent, maybe not burst them, but outlast them, if you're more consistent, maybe you're like Leslie Odom Jr. in Hamilton, you're willing to wait for it, the Alternator will definitely get you there eventually, but it is not going to be faster in terms of burst than, of course, its older brother. That's the R99, which is back, ladies and gentlemen. The R99 is reverted and changed what was recently in the care package for all of Season 6 and made people very, very sad because it's such a good weapon, such a staple to pro play. Whether you have the iron sights or whether you're firing down main just with your favorite HCOG or bruiser, the R99 is going to get the job done. It's gone from 12 damage per bullet down to 11 yet again. There's not much else to say except this is the king of light ammo weapons. But it maybe isn't the new darling. It isn't the new show, so to speak, or maybe the hot ticket in town. I will say that overall, people seem to be more excited about the R99 and the care package than Olympus itself. Excuse me, R99 back on the ground floor, and I think that's a good sign for how good this weapon is going to be. So do yourself a favor, pick it up and enjoy, but don't sleep on the R301. Moving back to the R301, it's obviously been a successful weapon for such a long time. It actually rivals the Alternator as far as magazine size, but where it beats it and where it always kind of takes precedence is the headshot damage, moving into a 2x headshot multiplier. In Apex Legends, guns will have different headshot multipliers, and we'll talk about some of the nerfs and changes that have occurred for that, including things like the Hemlock, which has actually had a reduction to its headshot multiplier to make those headshots a little bit less bursty and overall balance the weapon in a way that doesn't change the overall impact and feel of it. The R301, though, I think one of the best weapons in the game, and I've seen a lot of players use this to great effect in Season 7. It's got a little more range than some of the others too, so you may want to consider it, especially since Olympus is a bigger map. You may find it coming in handy, especially if you're having trouble hitting your R99 shots. The P2020, oh boy, still probably the worst weapon in the game outside of the Mozambique, but that's not an issue. I mean, you have to have that level up of a weapon, especially when you're in a battle royale. Somebody who picks this up and you pick up an R99, unfortunately, loot RNG is on your side, so you should win that fight 9 times out of 10. But the fact is, when you have that hammer point hop up, which doubles, essentially doubles the damage this weapon does when you are no longer shooting shields. So essentially, when you're not shooting shields and you're shooting flesh damage on anybody, you are going to find extreme value with that one. But still, the least valuable weapon in the light ammo game. Now moving on to maybe the new darling, maybe the star of the show, maybe the hot ticket, the RE45. I know a lot of people, when I picked this up in my last Horizon video and I showed off the new hop-up that comes along with it, they were saying, well, you messed up, you didn't pass, you passed the R99. No, this was the point. I wanted to show off this hop-up and talk about the quick draw holster, which applies to this and the Wingman. This is the new hop-up introduced in Season 7, and what you'll notice is when you do pick this up, you swap faster to your other weapon in your alternate hand. You also swap faster away from it if you're going to your other weapon. You have less hipfire spread, which means that normally when you shoot a weapon without aiming down sights, you are going to spread your bullets in kind of an erratic fashion, as you can see there. This is me without actually moving my mouse. This is what the gun does itself. When you put the hop-up on, that spread will be tighter and it'll be more consistent. You'll see a lot of these shots are staying up on that back wall and not actually hitting the bottom anymore, where they would kind of be flying towards the dummy's feet. A lot of the times, if you look back at that footage, you'll notice that the spread has been condensed, so it's a lot easier to control and hit your target. The other thing that it'll do is it'll aim down sights faster. So for the Wingman, the RE45, and this, you'll be able to aim faster, you'll be able to swap faster, and you'll be able to have less spread on the hip fire, which are extremely valuable things. I think a lot of people are underestimating the value of this because it doesn't sound fancy, but the truth of the matter is, it is one of the more effective hop-ups that we've ever had introduced into the game, because these are raw stats. It's like giving someone movement speed or extra regen on health. Lifeline, for example, had 25% fast healing as far as her passive for the longest of time in Apex Legends, and it was constantly OP just because it was just raw stats, raw data that made Lifeline having a better chance to heal faster than you over every single time she played, and obviously putting her in a better winning position over the course of so many games. The quick draw holster is going to do that, I think, for a lot of different weapons, especially the Wingman and the RE45, so make sure to pick it up. I think it's one of the better hop-ups that they've added. Maybe not flashy, but certainly effective. Now, on the Wingman, you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to run this as a 101 headshot monster as a main weapon? If you're going to use the Wingman as more of a sidearm where you're going to run an R99 or maybe a Volt, then maybe the quick draw holster is for you, as you'll be on your main weapon, you'll use your Volt, you'll spread that out, and you'll see if you can get it down. And if you can't, that Wingman will be there for you on the background, and you'll be able to swap to it faster than the other player who you're going to be fighting against. And I think that's really where the key is, especially for players who like, do you like running an R301? Do you guys like the Flatline? Maybe you're a Spitfire player, or maybe you actually enjoy the Volt. If you do, then this is going to be a hop-up that makes everything you do outside of that even better, because everyone runs out of a magazine at some point. You run out of bullets and you've got to reload or swap. The person who swaps faster gets that next shot off, usually wins the fight. And if that's you with this hop-up, you're going to be a very happy Apex Legends player. Now, as you can see, there's some hip fire, and the spread of the Wingman, it's not as noticeable in that because the Wingman in general actually has tighter and I think better hip fire spread than most will know. But let's go ahead and do it again. You can see a lot of those shots a little more consistent with that quick draw holster. Again, this is not a flashy hop-up. I don't think you should think of it as a flashy hop-up, and I don't think you should think it's good or bad based on how flashy or fun sounding it is. I think you should think of it as how effective is this in actual fights, and being able to do things like swap from my Wingman back to my P2020 and finish somebody off before they can get around the corner. Knowing I've broken their shield, how fast with that hop-up can I actually get there? And noticing some of the differences when you have it on versus when you don't. The speed is extremely noticeable for getting to those other weapons. So I'm very, very excited that this has come into the game, and I think it's given some cool options for players who maybe want to play more varied. If you're still a hardcore only Wingman player, and there are a lot of them, they've been around since the beginning of Apex, you may still want to rock the Skull Piercer. Moving on to the Spitfire, it is the most consistent weapon, I think, in almost all of Apex Legends. It has got some recoil adjustments over the course of last season, but this season, it stays exactly the same. There's not too much to talk about it, but if you're looking for something that is going to apply damage at a decent clip, but also at a decent range, with giving you a lot of wiggle room to miss, this is the weapon for you. Maybe if you're a beginner, maybe if you're just jumping in, you may look at the Spitfire and say, this weapon is kind of appealing to me, and that's because you really can't go wrong. Aim in the direction of an enemy, you've got enough bullets to miss nearly half of your magazine and still end up downing them and applying damage to your teammates. Also, if you're not a carry and you're not looking to get that early burst, one of the cool things I think you could do with the Spitfire is really support teammates well. One big headshot, 36 damage, or of course, a couple of body shots really makes a difference when you're using this and helping your teammates to push who are maybe more aggressive or maybe a little more mechanically skilled than you. Moving on to the Hemlock, which has gotten some changes. Let's talk a little bit about those changes in Season 7. The increased horizontal recoil of the first 3 shots now shifts slightly to the right. They also increase the recoil magnitude in the later stages of the pattern. So the more you shoot and the longer it is, it will be more recoil. They also reduce the recoil multiplier in single fire mode to help compensate for the additional recoil they put on the burst mode. And that recoil should mostly be increased in burst mode than the single fire mode, as they say in the patch notes. To, I think, help against some of the burst, the designers also talked about reducing the headshot multiplier from 44 to 39, or going from 2.0 to 1.75. And so the Hemlock has seen a bit of a nerf. Still an incredible gun, and it's been one of the best guns in this season, so we understand why it got that nerf. Of course, the Flatline is one of the weapons that kind of caught my eye. but I just think it's just because it's been so outshone by the Volt, by the Havoc, by the Devotion, by the Hemlock, by the Prowler, that it really had its least formidable season in the final season. Remember, the Flatline got a lot of love in season 3 through 5 because of the Anvil receiver, and then I think the general buffs that happened to the weapon that made it a hard-hitting, really like mid-ranged beast. You can tap this thing, you can auto-fire it, and you'll obviously hit really hard headshots, doing 19 body damage and 38 damage for a headshot, which is extremely strong. You're taking off with just a few headshots like that, almost a third to 40% of somebody's armor, and that means so much, even if you're missing again. Obviously, it will not be able to compare to the huge magazine size of the Spitfire, but as far as damage and as far as speed, it's going to get you the job. Now, the Sentinel has gotten a huge buff, and I think you guys are going to like this change. Instead of actually going for the old passive of the Sentinel, where the Energized Sentinel takes away everybody's shield. Anytime you hit somebody who has a shield on, all the shield will go. They've decided to turn it into a pure damage increase instead of applying bonus damage. So the Energized Sentinel base damage is now 88, up from 70. The cool thing too is that the headshot damage is 176. Say it with me. Dead. Yeah, I didn't want you to say the number. I wanted you to say what happened when you shoot somebody in the head with this thing energized. I think it's already been a hard-hitting weapon, and it's had a little bit of trouble competing with the triple take, which also has a nerf in this season, but I think that going away from the Disruptor anti-shield effect to an amp damage boost effect is going to bring a lot of attractiveness to this weapon in Season 7, and I think if you're the first one to hop on it, you're going to get some nutty clips where people don't expect this to be putting this much damage out because it's never been able to do this before. It's your mini Kraber on the map. Nothing else can compare to this true headshot damage on an Energized Sentinel, and I think there's going to be some crazy clips and some crazy opportunities for any of you who jump on it early in Season 7. Talking about the charge rifle, one of the most consistent and I think effective weapons in all of the sniper land in Apex Legends. And when you're considering the fact that it only takes 2 attachments to fully level up and be geared and ready to go, it's really hard to beat. It's kind of like value for money. You may look at a place that's really expensive in a beautiful area, but it's so expensive that maybe a place that's in a little less beautiful area, but maybe an amazing location and at a very average price might get more attention from you, or overall be better bang for your buck. And that's what the charge rifle does as far as its comparison to the snipers, especially with the Evo shields. It is just one of those things that you really have to pick up if you don't have another alternative. Speaking of other alternatives, the Longbow is kind of the ugly stepchild right now of the snipers, although I think it has a ton of potential. Hitting with 138, just around where the triple take can hit with a headshot as well. It's got a faster fire rate, but also a lot easier to whiff these shots. You have to be more accurate, and I think if you are, this could be the weapon for you. It's a lot flashier, it gives you some more wiggle room to miss, but in general, I think the triple take has been a lot safer, and the Sentinel will probably outshine this one considering there are not new buffs or changes to this weapon in Season 7. But I am hoping for some changes eventually to it, because I kind of want the Longbow to be back meta again. The triple take, which has really taken over the meta of the snipers, is now similarly getting a little bit of a nerf, going from the 1.3 fire rate to 1.2. 1.3 actually was what was upped to increase the fire rate for the triple take mid-Season 6, but now after seeing that the triple take has been performing a little too well since the most recent buff, they've decided to nerf it and check out the weapon again. Of course, the new popularity of the weapon after integrating the choke and increasing the sniper ammo has really affected its performance. More people are playing it, which means more good players are using it, which means that they're getting more kills than any of the maybe not great players who had been using the triple take for a while other snipers were meta. And of course, it's rising the value of that weapon. So make sure to check that out. Still a game changer there. The the Volt, I think is one of the weapons that you really have to consider playing right now, especially since the Prowler is out and you're competing with the R99. The Volt is going to have a better time this season, and here's why. The Prowler, I think, was in so many ways with the burst damage, or when you look at the overall magazine size, 35 in the magazine, it was very hard to outtrade a Prowler with a Volt because you just don't have enough gas in the tank. capping out at, I believe, 27 ammo when you look at a max magazine. 26, excuse me. It just could never compare, but I think this is going to be the season for the Volt if you guys want to run it again, and it's been one of your favorite weapons. Introduced in Season 6, I absolutely love the thing, and I cannot wait to see what goes on in the R99 Volt battles. We have not really seen that since the R99's been in the care package. Okay, here's the Devotion, and we all know how this goes. One of the best weapons in the game, probably the best weapon in the game as far as DPS. It competes in so many levels with so many things. Headshot damage is a 2x multiplier, meaning that you're going to hit some nasty amounts of damage here with this Devotion if you hit a headshot. It's going to be incredible value with 32, but it also has a widespread. It's got a huge magazine, and it's got the ability, I think, to 1v1 almost any other weapon in the game when you have a turbocharger on it, because the DPS and the way it all comes out is crazy. But I want to talk a little bit about the Havoc, because this also uses the turbocharger, which when you find it, amps up the ability for the spin up time of this weapon, meaning that you'll be able to get your ammo out faster. You won't have to wait for that spin up, that charge up. Kind of think of Rampart's Sheila, where you have to kind of wait for it to get going. The turbocharger just cuts that all out, cuts out the fluff, gets right to the point. If you're more of an A to B type person, you're definitely going to want the turbocharger. The Havoc, as you can see, is already a banger, but what I think and I like about the turbocharger and the Havoc specifically in this season is that they've actually adjusted the recoil pattern to be a lot easier to control. It kicks up, then right, then left, and then up again, and the designers put some dev notes in there saying that the new recoil pattern was a bit too erratic and difficult to control due to all the rapid changes in direction. Because of this, and because of the value of the turbocharger still being in the hop-up pool, I literally think the Havoc might be the go-to weapon this season if you can find it. And this to me is setting up me saying this about several other weapons. I feel that this is going to be an extremely competitive weapon season, and it's just making Season 7 seem so much more fun for all of you. I'm sure you're really excited about this, and of course to get your hands on these bad boys. And hopefully you're enjoying this video. One of the coolest, I think, and most exciting changes is the L-Star. Now, the L-Star had a plethora of buffs, and what you're going to notice here is the L-Star having a significant recoil pattern kick horizontally at first and settling into that relatively consistent upward recoil. If you understand how to feather this, good players will be able to keep the good portion of the recoil all the time. The L-Star also venting has had a big increase, and almost a 300% increase in speed. So after you let go of the trigger, it will now go from 0.4 seconds to 0.15 seconds to vent and be ready to go again. And when you notice that the overheat of L-Star will not only be triggered if you do it, it will go from 1.15 seconds to go from 99% to 0, meaning that if you do not overheat the weapon, it'll take you only about 1 second to get right back to no heat at all, which means you can really get this thing going, and I think it's going to be a lot more impressive than before. It'll be 2.45 seconds if you overheat, so a little bit more than double the amount of time if you decide to overheat that thing. But honestly, they feel like it just wasn't as strong a weapon as it needed to be, and they've increased the reliability, so look out for the L-Star, one of the most exciting buffs I think that they've done to a weapon that severely needed it in this season. Moving on to the Mozambique, any changes to this? Not in Season 7. The Mozambique kind of falls in the same pattern of play as the P2020, which it's a fun weapon when you get the hammer points, when you get that one shot into someone who's not expecting it. When you have the purple bolt, it's actually pretty much a monster to deal with, but from range, it could be really unreliable, and that's why, as far as shotguns go, this will never be players' primary choice, even if they have the hammer points. It's just not reliable enough. It's the way the spread works, and unfortunately, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But give it a try if you're feeling spicy or going for some clips, because people always love to see a good Mozambique play. Moving on to the EVA 8. It is the automatic shotgun, which has a little bit of a, I don't even know what you call that shape. But you can see it there as I shot it into the wall next to the dummy. It's got 8 shots, and it's a really fun automatic weapon that can do well from mid-range, close range, and even do some decent poke from long range. I do like the EVA 8 as far as a reliable weapon, but I just seen so much in pro play, and especially casting the professional games of the ALGS, as I am a pro caster for the Apex competitive scene. It's really not the go-to weapon of choice. There was a season where it was comparable and maybe coming up in value, but the Mastiff has by and large overtaken that just with the immediacy and the impact of the burst that it can provide. One of the best things about the Mastiff over the EVA as well is the flexibility of the reload. Sometimes in a shotgun, you only need one more shot, but the EVA forces you to reload the entire thing. The Mastiff can reload one shotgun shot at a time, meaning that if you only need one more, you could start that reload, wait till one shell gets put in, and then start shooting yet again. Notice I don't have to get to 6 in order to obviously keep the shots going, and that to me is a big impact in terms of deciding what kind of shotgun I want to use. And if you want to follow what the pros do, if that's something you care about, this is definitely the shotgun of choice. There is no pro that is going to be using anything else if the Mastiff is available. So consider that your education. Now, the Peacekeeper, this is maybe the only other option, but it has nothing to do with consistency because this is still going to be in the care package. It's been several seasons since the PK has been in the care package, and I think the season that this comes out, it's going to be a wild time. People always realize that the Sheriff badge of the PK is a valuable kind of shotgun spread, but look at how tight the spread is when you have the choke on it. If you hit a headshot on that, it could be 143 to the dome, and of course, players who get really good at it and kind of train it like fine aim training, almost like you're shooting a Wingman, are going to have immediate success. I, on the other hand, suck at the Peacekeeper, so I'm trying to learn just as much as you guys. Unfortunately, the recoil pattern, the choke pattern, the timing just is a little off for me, but I'm going to start improving, and hopefully you guys will as well. If you find it in the care package, I think it's worth picking up. Even if you whiff your shots, getting good at it will grant you a lifetime of value in Apex Legends. Now, the Kraber is still the best weapon in the game by far to me because no other weapon is a one-shot kill no matter who you are, and kind of, you can see right there. If you get your shots with a Kraber, you take the value out of the enemy team's decision making because it's all about you. If you hit your shot, there's nothing they can do. You are the creator. You are in charge of your own destiny. And to me, any weapon that does that, it's got to be the best in the game right there. But it doesn't mean that it's going to be the most desired weapon in the game because the Prowler is not in the drop anymore. After an incredible Season 6, where it became probably the best and most utilized weapon across the higher levels of play and even the lower levels of play, featuring itself in valuable situations in almost every professional tournament Apex Legends put on, whether it was PGL, GLL, or the ALGS official EA tournaments that I've been casting, you will see the Prowler featured in high-level play. And part of it is because the burst fire is just so damn effective. You can burst somebody from range now, and this is really just a fully equipped Prowler. It comes with 175 bullets in reserve, as well as 35 in the magazine. So essentially a Prowler with a full extended mag and the select fire receiver. As a result of this, you could switch from burst or automatic, whatever fits your fancy, but the automatic is going to win most trades out of any other weapon, even potentially the R99, considering it's just got so many bullets. It hits way harder than the R99 with 15 damage per bullet instead of the 11 that is comparable. The Vol actually has a lot more comparison, but just can't really compete on the magazine size with the Prowler. And really only the Devotion or the Havoc hit well is going to be able to beat this thing when it comes to automatic fights. So make sure you pick this up if you can. It's got a really strong and I just think incredible source of options in play. If you run up on somebody with this thing and you start hitting your burst shots, there's really nothing they can do. They're going to say goodnight. They're going to reload up the lobby, maybe try to group with some friends in their new club or whatever, because they know there was no chance they were winning that one against you. That's going to wrap it up for ranking and explaining every weapon in Apex Legends Season 7. Let me know what you guys think about the buffs. Did it address the weapons that you want? Was there any weapon that was left behind? And are you a little sad that we didn't get a new weapon? Or are you excited that we've got so much new content with Olympus, Horizon, and all these other things? And of course, that the R99 is back on the ground. Let me know all your thoughts, anything you had to say about this comment in the comment section below, and of course leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to stay tuned for more Season 7 content. I know I put out 3 videos already on Season 7. Oh, and that's just the beginning, baby. As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching. Remember to never give up, never stop gaming, and I'll see you all next time.